I make a motion to begin with a membership.
Yeah, we can go ahead and get started. Tim should be on any minute, so that's fine.
Will that the first item in the agenda, in case you cannot read it, is you and Tim have terms expiring in December.
Okay, I couldn't read it. I opened it up just so I can see it now. So
Okay.
that's why I wasn't sure what you were talking about, but okay. Yeah. So yes, I intend to renew. But we better wait for Tim, because we've got to discuss his other board opportunity that he had, and possibility of changing the day of the meeting, so he was able to do that.
That would be fine with me.
And Doug, we actually have to make Linda a actual member of the committee, correct?
Yeah, so let's talk about that for a second. I know you guys have been operating like that, which is great, and the more participation we can get, the better. Officially, our town code says the Ag Committee would be comprised of 5 town residents, and then I think Sarah's note here says the town board has appointed 6 at this point, 2 of which are non-residents, and then. So I think that there's some work there. Mr. Davis, if you put on your ordinance committee hat for a quick second, I don't think that's a big change. We could probably just revisit the agriculture committee section of the town code. And I guess the other thing I would say is if there's any other changes that the ag committee would like to look at, maybe it's maybe we remove the number and allow the agriculture committee. We're talking about doing something similar with our environmental conservation board, where giving the committee itself the flexibility of increasing or decreasing depending on projects. You may have a very specific project going on, and you might want to increase the membership to even more because of something you're working on, whereas other times maybe you let it go a little lower depending on what's going on. So I know we've kind of played around with that a little bit, and kind of some ideas in terms of the environmental conservation board. Maybe we look at that for the ag committee, or I guess now would be an appropriate time as any. Is there, and I'll just kind of throw this out, is there a interest or a benefit, I guess I should say, is there a benefit to considering a merger of the environmental conservation board and the ag committee into more of like a natural resources board? And I just kind of throw that out there, something to think about. And maybe there's separate subcommittees or not. And I'm not advocating one way or another. I'm just, for purposes of conversation, just kind of throwing that out there.
Personally, I feel that, there should be a separate agriculture committee because the ECB is being, expanded anyways, is it not, Doug, from what it presently is?
Well, it's the same thing that I just kind of referenced. They want to have the ability to, I think, increase their membership when there's various things going on. The one thing I guess I would say is I see the ECB spends a lot of time reviewing development projects that might not be anything agriculture related. And then there's other times where it is agriculture related. So that's, I think maybe, that's why I think of maybe if we leave the agriculture committee as a standing separate committee, maybe we want to have the conversation about the section of the code that talks about the types of things that are referred to the agriculture committee to really formalize that a little bit more and the potential impacts. Like, for instance, I'll give you an example. We have really little in the terms of active agricultural parcels in Uptown, but we have a lot of development coming for Uptown, and the ECB is going to really get busy as those projects in Uptown come to fruition. But maybe what we want to say is in other areas of the town, especially in our AR1, AR2, for instance, that there's an automatic referral to the ag committee. I don't know, just kind of throwing it out there, but you know, if we're going to look at the code anyway, that might be a good opportunity to kind of revisit those things.
What does it state now, Doug? How do things get referred to us?
Great question, and I don't have the answer. Let me pull it up. Let me go to the town code. Agriculture Advisory Committee. Let's see. Referrals. Here it is. All applications made to the town board, zoning board of appeals, or planning board, and it looks like Tim is connecting, just it's kind of pixelated there, his screen, but or planning board for land development within area described as farm parcels, preserved land adjacent to preserved lands, PDR, or open space, identified in the Town of Canandaigua Agriculture Enhancement Plan as adopted by the town board, shall be referred to the Agriculture Advisory Committee for review and comment. So, well, that's pretty all encompassing, really. Such referral shall occur once the information and material submitted by an applicant has deemed to be appropriate by the development office. The other thing is, and I know that there's been, and Sarah's been trying to help with this, but there's been transition in staff in the development office. And I know Shauna is really getting up to speed and really trying to make sure that there's nothing falling through the cracks, and even re-looking at the procedures and the policies, internal stuff in terms of the operations of the development office. It'd probably be good for us at some point in the near future to have Shauna visit with the ag committee and have a better understanding of some of the things that you might be interested in seeing, and make sure that those applications, when they come in, are referred to the ag committee. The other thing in terms of referrals, and I'm sorry, I'm taking us on a tangent here because we started this conversation about the membership, but the other thing about referrals is we have a project review committee that meets once a month to review all new incoming applications. And to the best of my knowledge, there is not currently a representative of the Agriculture Committee on that PRC. However, almost all of the boards actually do have a representative on the PRC. So if there's somebody who'd like to represent the Ag Committee on those PRC referral dates, and then say, hey, I think this should go to the Ag Committee for comment, that's something we could consider also.
Now that person in there will not reduce the amount of referrals we get, because there is a couple that we have received that, yeah, no point of us receiving it. If it's in the code, we'll still get it regardless if we have a rep in there or not. Is that correct?
Essentially, yes. Mm-hmm.
I've always thought it's probably better to get a few extras that we don't need to see than missing out on some.
No, I agree. I was just trying to understand what implies to have someone in there other than adding a few more, potentially adding a few more.
Yeah, really, the PRC, the Project Review Committee, is the first look at all the new applications coming in. So an application comes in, you know, maybe somebody that gets referred to the PRC because they're putting a deck in the residential lake district along the lake, you know, and you probably don't even care about that as an ag committee, where you do from a natural resource, right? And that's why we have the ECB, but little to no impact to agriculture, right? For something like that, probably. So, you know, being able to just lend a voice, I guess, relative to those items that might have a impact on agriculture, but nonetheless, I'm sorry, Tim just sent a message. The audio is not legible or unintelligible.
Unintelligible.
So I don't know, Tim, we can hear each other okay?
Yeah.
If you can, yeah. But nonetheless, I mean, just wanted to let you know that that is an option if that's something you wanted to do.
You'd also mentioned subcommittee.
Well, if you were going to, I mean, you always have the ability as a committee to appoint a subcommittee to work on something specific. You always have that option available currently, right? If we were talking about some sort of a combined committee, maybe you have a subcommittee specific to agriculture, but if you'd prefer to leave it separate as agriculture, maybe you don't need a subcommittee. I can tell you the original reason, and Gary, I know you know this, and Fernando and Bob, you were all involved. We had originally talked about this as a separate standalone committee intentionally because of the agriculture enhancement plan, and also putting it in town code so that it existed regardless of the administration or the leadership of the town or anything else, that the town code says there shall be an agriculture advisory committee. That's actually one of the very first things under the purpose section, but in the formation section there, but it hereby establishes the committee. So that was very intentional why it was separate. Maybe we got too specific in the number of members and that kind of stuff, which we can revisit, but that was why we put it out specifically as a separate committee.
Well, I think when originally we started the committee up is that we went with the 5 because we went along with the numbers the planning and the zoning boards have, and so that's why we have 5.
Yep.
We also happen to be the 5 that were in the room, willing to stay in.
I was gonna say, it's hard to get anyone to participate, so.
That's true.
I think that I would be okay following your suggestion, Doug, of taking the number out and allowing the president of the committee to decide if we need someone else and go recruiting. And whenever we have additional volunteers, like we have Linda now, to just add them so that when one person gets too tired, we're not struggling to find that person.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
After all,
Recording.
if we represent the farmers, we know about take advantage of bumper crops because there is going to be 3 or 4 that are not as abundant. So if we have 6 people now, we'll take advantage and we'll push forward.
A little bit of feedback with Tim there. Sorry, Tim, I just muted you. We were getting some feedback there. Few audio. I'm not sure. Maybe Tim, you may have connected twice. Tim, are you there?
Yep,
We can hear you.
I'm trying to disconnect the phone in number here. Did I do it?
You
We
can
can
now.
hear you.
We can hear
That
you.
sounds better. Yeah.
All right. Technology. Hi, everybody.
Tim,
Sorry I'm late. I went to the town hall and, but I'm here now.
Sorry about the confusion there, Tim.
It's okay.
So, Bob, it sounds like to me, and we can, Gary, we'd have to obviously take this to the ordinance committee. For those of you, if you don't know, Gary chairs the ordinance committee for us, but it sounds like what I'm generally hearing is just some tweaking of the existing code relative to the number of individuals, and we can certainly mark up a draft and get that back to the ag committee for a final look before we refer that to the ordinance committee.
Yep, that's fine.
Sounds good.
another thing that we could also look at if, the committee decided to is have like the planning and zoning have alternates. And then when somebody no longer decides that they want to continue, you would have somebody with experience there from attending the meetings, if they wish to step forward and be a voting member.
Kind of like a bullpen.
Yeah,
There you go.
Now, in your experience, Garrett, does people get bored of coming to meetings if they cannot vote? Or is there enough interest that they just wait in there until it's their turn and consistently come to meetings?
well, both the planning and the zoning I'm more familiar with, having served on it. They stayed there. They were pretty interested, and they'd step in when a regular voting member was absent. Is that the way it works, right, Doug?
Correct. Yeah, the only thing about that, Gary, is normally that would be done with the defined number, right? So we have 5 voting members, and if one of the voting members can't come, then the alternate fills in and then still making up the 5th. If we're going to eliminate the number and give, well, it could still be done either way. We just have to figure out how to word it, but.
Well, the only thing I was thinking is we've had 2 or 3 meetings, I think, in the last 3 years where we didn't have enough, we didn't have a quorum to vote, you know?
Is forum 75% or is that higher?
Majority.
be-
isn't it?
No,
On the
one more
5
than,
Yeah, on a 5-member board, it would be 3 voting members.
Yeah, I would say we just do what we were discussing, just get rid of the number. I mean, I think it's highly unlikely we're gonna end up with so many people wanting to participate that we don't know what to do. That's usually unlikely in any type of thing these days.
you could appoint a lot of subcommittees then, Bob.
Yeah,
Okay.
so what happens though, if we eliminate the number, then how do you know if you have a quorum?
Yeah,
That's
we'll have,
true.
well, it would, the town board would still, or the wording, we'll have to look at the wording, or the committee would still have to appoint a number, and there would still have to be a majority of the members. So, you know, if you have a board, or in this case, the Agriculture Advisory Committee, if you have 7 members, you're going to need 4. It has to be a majority to make up the quorum. If you have 5 members and a 6th one wants to be appointed, that's great. You have to officially appoint them at a meeting. And then that would require you, if you have 6, you'd need what, 4? You'd have to have the 4 to have the quorum.
But I would certainly want it to come to the ordinance committee from the ag committee of what they desire, you know. I don't feel comfortable letting the ordinance committee make a determination of the numbers and things like that and how they want to have their committee set up.
Yeah, I made a note. I think what I would suggest to help you guys out is let Sarah and I mark up the section of code currently, a red line version is what we usually call it, and circulate it back to you guys. And you could talk about it again at the next meeting, make it whatever changes. And then once we get that to a point where we're ready to refer it to the ordinance committee, then we can send that off to the ordinance committee, right, Gary? So that they have a recommendation. Yeah.
Yes.
That sounds good. That's everyone else in agreement with that?
I second that.
Yes.
Can I ask 2 questions about meetings since we're talking about meetings? The first is, I don't know if somebody is interested. I know that there's technically supposed to be a secretary that we appoint. We really should be doing minutes and then referring those back out. One of the things that we could think about here, we have a planning board secretary, we have environmental conservation board, we have zoning board secretary. The lady who's been helping us with the environmental conservation board, I know is also helping Gary with the ordinance committee. She has indicated to me that she'd be willing, you know, especially since a lot of these meetings are once a month, to help out and do some minutes. We could look at that if that's what the committee would be interested in. She could actually take the minutes of the meetings, transcribe them, and then send them out that same week that the meeting is with all of that.
And so far, Sarah has been doing most of that, but and
She has, Sarah's been trying to do that, and the referrals too. The minutes, Kimberly Burkhardt is who I'm thinking of, and Gary's working closely with her with the ordinance committee. But in terms of actual summary of all the discussions that took place, I know a lot of times that's difficult for Sarah to do that. Sarah's really been trying to help out with the referrals versus the actual minutes, the summary of the minutes of the conversations and stuff. So that just becomes more time consuming intensive. And, We've got Sarah spread pretty thin at the moment, so I'm just trying to be cognizant of that also.
No, that's fine. Well,
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, so we basically just have to get some notes and summary to this woman, and she would make
You-
it.
No,
No.
Go ahead, Gary. Go ahead.
I was gonna say she could attend our meetings
Right.
and,
Okay.
you know, take notes from that. I would suggest though, because I need to talk to her and Doug in this, we don't need them quite as extensive as she makes, you know, the ordinance minutes. And the other thing about it is by having ag minutes, she could submit them on your behalf, Bob, to the agenda for the town board. And so the town board and the public knows what happens in each of the meetings that we have.
Okay. Maybe it's better to go that route then. A little more organized and professional.
Official. I think that's a good
Yeah,
idea.
official. I make a motion that we what was her name, Doug?
Kimberly Burkhardt.
That we have Kimberly Burkhardt do minutes for Ag Committee.
second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. So
Okay.
you'll contact her, Doug?
Yeah, we'll reach out to her. Actually, Sarah will probably reach out to her, but we'll reach out to her and ask her if she can help us out with that. One more quick question relative to meetings, and here we are tonight. But so with the legislature's passage of this piece of legislation, I don't know what they're calling it, but it's Assembly Bill number 40001. It has all kinds of stuff in it, including remote meetings. It was signed into law today by the governor. It actually authorizes remote meetings until January 15th. So it's really whatever the preferences of the Agriculture Committee. If you want to do it at the town hall or here, or if you want to do it by Zoom, it's your preference. We just want to make sure we're advertising it appropriately.
My preference is to be in person, but I know it's easier for the family when I'm here, so I can still take care of the kids if something else is around. So flexibility is welcome, but I'm done.
Can we
I'd
choose on
rather
a
in
monthly
person.
basis?
Hmm?
Can we choose on a monthly basis what we do, whether we meet in person or via Zoom?
You can, we just need to advertise it. That's all. So we just need to know at least, a week in advance before the meeting.
You have to have it both ways, Doug?
We have
Regardless?
we have to allow the public to participate remotely, but it would be up to, whichever way you want to do it. Or you could do hybrid meetings for that matter. For those that want to come in person, they could, and those that want to participate remotely could. Whatever you want to do. It's just something to think about. It's just we should advertise it however we're going to do it.
I prefer to meet in person, but maybe doing the hybrid is the best way for now, because that way we have both options. And
We do that with the wine grape growers and it works out really well. Some people are 3 hours away, so they're more likely to participate.
Okay, so I'll talk to Sarah. Let's just plan that then. We'll plan on hybrid meeting for anybody that wants to do it in person. You're welcome to. We'll have that option available. And for anybody that wants to participate remotely as well as the public, we'll have that option available. That's not a problem. So.
And on the subject of the meetings, if we go back to our agenda, I think we had one or two other things. Discussion of meeting day.
We do. We do. Oh, I don't know if you want to go back to this, Bob and Tim, the renewal piece.
So yeah, I intend to, but that was before Tim was on. So guess that comes back to your to the discussion, Tim, of your other board opportunity that you had or have.
Yes, I've really enjoyed participating with the Ag Committee, and if there's any way possible to continue to participate, and you want me to participate, I would be willing to go ahead and do that. So it's entirely up to the committee. And unless, there's somebody that could fill my position, I'm happy to go ahead and continue. If we could switch our evenings to some other evening besides Thursday.
How about Tuesdays?
Tuesdays are good for me.
We have, that might be a challenge for in-person meetings because almost every single
And,
Tuesday
yeah.
is either a planning board or zoning board meeting. There's only one meeting a month. Let me throw out a crazy idea. I'm full of crazy ideas today. That's what everybody keeps telling me. What about a morning meeting, like early? Would that work for anybody, or is everybody opposed to that? Just, it would be different, just for a conversation.
What do you
It,
mean by early?
If
It's
it was
gonna be
early,
month to month, because if I have office days, I have no problem joining in the morning, but if I'm in the field, which is 60% of my time, it's really, most of the days I leave 6:30 when I'm in the field.
Okay,
So I have any time of the day that we have a meeting, I'm not gonna have good reception.
right, okay. So it sounds like then evening meetings might work better, which is fine. I just wanted to throw it out there just to see what everybody thought.
Is the day and the time the problem for you, Tim?
It's the day. The other organization meets on Thursday evenings as well.
Okay.
Two Thursdays out of the month. We could change the week to not the first or the third week and stay on Thursday evening.
Yeah, so that like the second or fourth Thursday of the month, there's nothing to the best of my knowledge that's reoccurring on those other than court, which we've always had anyway. The ECB also meets the first Thursday of the month. Sometimes there's some overlap with that. So that would actually get away from that if we were to move in that direction. The other Wednesday nights are genuinely open unless we're having some sort of a special meeting, like we have one coming up on September 22nd. And then the other thing I just throw out there is Monday nights are open with the exception of the third Monday of the month. That's town board. So if any of those would work better
Now,
for anybody, we could.
The
talk about
reason we put it on the first week of the month, if I recall correctly, had something to do with referrals. Does it really matter?
that was the original reason, Fernando, and the development office has actually changed the application deadline, moved things around a little bit earlier. So I don't know that it matters as much anymore. Now, the big thing is the planning board meets the second and fourth Tuesday of each month. Traditionally, they're reviewing new applications the second meeting of the month. So you just want to do it early enough in the month so that there's time for whatever comments you have on an application to make it back to the planning board in time. That would be the only thing.
So the second week could still work if we do the second Thursdays.
Yes.
And I usually have just as many conflicts on a Wednesday as a Thursday. When I'm on a plane, I try to be back home on a Thursday. So that was the only advantage for me. But for the most part, Thursday or Wednesday work equally well for me.
You know, Wednesdays do not work for me in the evening.
So I would make
And
I would make the proposal of second Thursday of the month.
If would that work for everybody? I lost my connection for a minute, so I didn't hear everything that you were saying.
Second Thursday should work. Does
I
anybody
make
object?
no, Fernando, you already made a motion, correct?
Yeah, if that's okay, I make the motion for second Thursday.
So I second that. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay,
So then we could go back to this. Does that mean, Tim, you'd like to be reappointed to renew your term?
Why not?
Great. Perfect. So Bob and Tim, both of your terms technically don't expire until the end of this year. We're just starting to work on organizational stuff for the end of the year and stuff. So we'll take care of that through the town board, unless we change the town code relative to the ag committee in the meantime, and we change how that's done. But anyway, we'll work through that together. So.
Okay.
All right, so we talked about the code stuff here, Bob, I think already,
Yep.
right?
Yep. Meeting, we got through that.
Schedule. Number 3 there, ag enhancements, plans, implementation plan items. Where are we? What is the next focus for 22? Can I walk through this a little bit with you and just a couple of things, and feel free to interrupt me here. There's a couple of things I want to bring to your attention, and I'll pull up the implementation plan here for a quick second. But I want you to know of a couple of things. The state of New York has just changed the way solar exemptions are given. And there's now a uniform assessment methodology that has to be used by all assessors in the state of New York. And the way our assessor described it to me is it's very advantageous for the solar company and the solar farm, the way that it's going to now be assessed, because the state is very much pushing solar farm projects and really trying to encourage them as much as possible. I also want to make you aware, the planning, at least one planning board member, I think I've heard it from 2 now, has made a comment about, hey, do we need to go back and revisit our solar law? Because is it too restrictive relative to where solar farms can be located? I actually reference our solar law a lot because I have a lot of solar developers that contact me. And I would just say, let me say it this way, but I take your guys' lead, whatever you want to do. What I usually say to a solar company is, look for a way to not negatively impact agriculture, because the way our code exists currently, a solar project is only permitted by special use permit. And the planning board is not authorized to grant a special use permit for a solar farm project unless they find that there is not a negative impact on valuable agricultural lands. And a big part of the way they do that is from the referral from you. So if you say, like, for instance, the one we did on Monks Road, this is not going to be a loss of valuable agricultural lands, it becomes pretty easy for them to go ahead and authorize that special use permit. If you say, hey, this is going to be a loss of valuable agricultural lands, that becomes a lot more challenging for them to go ahead and issue a special use permit. So I think we have a very unique code relative to that. But I want you to be aware that, you know, there's the code itself, and whether or not we revisit that is one issue. And then the solar exemption, both of those matters could be a situation where that could start to put some pressure relative to farmland versus solar farms. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention.
Is there anything we can do about that exemption, or is that just
No.
hope that they stick to the town law? And
Yeah, from what I understand, that was done by the state of New York. It was just done, and it was passed out to all the assessors and said, this is the way you're going to do the assessments. Now, it's not an exemption. The town has opted out of the solar exemption, but it's the way that the assessment is determined on solar farms, that there is a methodology that's now going to be uniform across the entire state of New York. So I don't think there's anything we can do about that, other than we have already opted out of the solar exemption. Now, I know that I've heard from at least one planning board member has made a comment that, maybe we shouldn't have opted out, or maybe we need to encourage more renewable energy, those types of things. But I'm not so sure that that person that made that comment is also thinking about the impact to agriculture and farmland. So that's why I just want you to be aware of this, because I think this is something that you're going to be facing probably through 22.
There's something else I was going to ask you relating to this, Doug. I was talking to a friend of mine who's on his town board on the other side of Syracuse in a small, pretty rural town. And they're facing a very large solar development, like, I don't know, well over 1,000 acres. And I can't remember the name of whatever the state told them, but there's something similar to eminent domain that if it produces a certain amount of power, the state can override anything the municipality says.
Yeah, there's something called Article 10, is actually a state legislation that was enacted a number of years ago now. And there is a threshold. I'd have to dig into it more, Bob, but yes, Article 10 gives the state the power to preempt the local municipality.
Has there been any cases of that in New York at this point? I mean, some of these are quite large that they talk about.
I'd have to research that a little bit, Bob. I'm not sure.
I have a friend in Madison County that was approached to rent land for solar. He doesn't want to do it, but he's facing the possibility of not getting anything if he doesn't accept, because they threaten to apply that on his land. So I don't know if they have used it or not, but they're definitely threatening with it.
I think that's probably the same one that we're talking about, Fernando.
Yeah.
I know from what I've heard through the grapevine over the years that a lot of times it's used as leverage to try to get to a point where they want to be. I don't know if it's actually been used versus the municipality. I think it would be, you ask a very interesting question, Bob, and I just don't know the answer about if there's been any case law on it, because generally speaking, the state of New York is a home rule state. And that actually goes back, and believe it or not, there's a fair number of times when you're in this legal realm on the foundation of the state, as with the state of New York being one of the 13 original colonies, that sometimes that all factors into that. So it would be very interesting. I'd have to dig into that a little bit more and actually probably work with the town attorney and the Association of Towns. I'll make a note, though. We can dig into that more and get back to you.
Yeah, I don't know if it makes any difference. It's just kind of interesting. I had never heard about that before.
Yeah.
Either.
But yeah, the exemption is one thing. I can tell you the other thing that I've had calls numerous times now from the Ontario County IDA, where the solar companies, a lot of times, there's a couple that are pretty high pressure that will contact us and we'll say exactly what I said to you a minute ago. And then they'll go to the county IDA and they'll say, well, we need a pilot from the IDA and we're going to produce jobs. And up until this point, generally speaking, the IDA has deferred to the local municipality. Whether or not that continues, I don't know. There is a change coming with the Ontario County Economic Development Director position. And so I don't know what that looks like, because that's directly involvement with the Ontario County IDA. But up to this point, they've deferred to the local municipality. Some municipalities are rather welcoming to the large solar farms, I guess is how I would describe them. Whereas, I think our law is very unique in that it specifically spells out the planning board is not authorized to grant the special use permit if there's a loss of valuable agricultural land.
So if the planning board gets to discussing more of this, how is there a way to ensure that we'll be involved in it? Or at least can comment on it?
Yeah, I think that's great. I think, again, you've hit the nail on the head. Maybe what we do is, if it's okay, or if the committee directs us, we could send a message to the planning board chairman and say, hey, if this topic comes up again, we'd like to schedule a joint meeting, the agriculture committee and the planning board, to have further conversations before there's any continuous conversation on it.
Okay. Do you want me to do that, or is that something you guys can do?
Whichever you prefer. If you'd like to do it, that'd be great. If you want us to do it, we can.
No, I'll take care of that.
Okay.
So I need to contact the chair of the planning board.
Yeah, Chuck Euler is the chair. Okay. A couple other things here, Bob, just real quick, if I could. I think Sarah's probably touched base with everybody on the changes to the PDR. So we've, it's interesting to see how Ag-A-Markets is changing that program a little bit. Sarah and I have kind of been bouncing around some ideas on what a new conservation program might look like for the town of Canandaigua. At some point, it's probably not going to be ready for the October meeting, but I'm hoping by the end of the year that maybe we can have a workshop with you guys to talk about what you would like to see in a conservation program and what that means, however it is that you want to look at that. Like if I said to you as an ag committee, we have $1 million to invest in agriculture protection, how would you go about it? It'd be interesting to get your feedback and your ideas on that, because we need to create a new conservation program that's going to be meaningful and make sense. And we've got to figure out the nuts and bolts of that and how that will really all work. Is it extinguishing development rights? There's still the state program, there's still the federal program, and maybe that's part of the legs of the stool for our conservation program, but maybe there's also a town program, something along the lines of the TDR stuff we've talked about, any number of different things, but we're going to really need to dig into that. And that's probably one of those areas where we talk about 22. We've got a strategic planning session coming up on September 22nd. And I just put a plug in for that. It would be wonderful if you guys could come to that, or some of you could come to that, because that really does help to shape the direction for our priority action items for next year as a town. And I think this subject of conservation, I know that there's others on the ordinance committee, Gary, like Tom Schwartz, is very passionate about this, wants to see this. I think this also very much falls into the wheelhouse of the Ag Committee, the Environmental Conservation Board. We're making some changes to conservation subdivision, as you all know. So it's one of those topics that we need to pay attention to and figure out how we're going to go about this. It's a complex piece with a lot of moving different parts. So. All right, any questions on that? Let me pull up here. So I'm sorry, I didn't share my screen. The agriculture enhancement plan, that was the other thing there on Sarah's agenda. And obviously we're not gonna have time to go through every one of these items, but if we just even look at the main goals here, improving the economic viability of farms in the town of Canandaigua. We had originally talked from a strategy, recruit agriculture processing, distribution, expanding markets, increase of sales of local farm products. Where are we at with that, kind of checking in? We did talk, and Tim, I know you and I had talked about this. We had talked about the farm market stand on 332 next to Ace Hardware, and maybe even doing something where others, local producers could participate in that. They've been doing a lot of work on that. Actually, I believe I think today may actually be the soft opening. This weekend, I believe, is the soft opening for that facility, and selling farm products. A lot of that is associated with Geneco produce, but they certainly have made a substantial investment into that facility. If you haven't been by it lately, take a ride by it. It looks a zillion times better than what it did.
It does
And,
look nice. I
yeah.
went by the other day and it's like,
They've even paved and striped the parking lot in front of it. They've put a lot into that. But going back to this concept of having a place where some local producers, I think we can still have conversations with them. I think they're open to having those conversations with us. You guys are quiet.
Well,
Tired.
we have not done a lot on that particular section. Last couple of meetings, we were more focusing on the fair and what it was going to be extension education of people. And one of the ideas that came up was making a display of agriculture in the community, agriculture in the town. Maybe we can do a type of the signs that you guys can make there and put it in different parks and have it for a month in one park and then move it to the next park and just have different displays of how agricultural look in the town. And that's a little bit of what we were looking at last meeting. And because our focus had been so much in the fair and communication of what we do, education of what we do, and we're looking for ways to have impacts. That's the part of the plan that we were focusing on.
I don't know if anybody has updated you guys. I know that we've talked about it in the past with the Agriculture Committee. We have at Miller Park. Miller Park has always been the park where we've talked about agriculture, right? And it really showcases the wildlife. It talks about the history of the Miller family, specifically for agriculture and the history of agriculture. We finally have received the sign in. There was a delay with supply, like everybody, in getting the new interpretive sign in, but I know it just came in that actually tells the history of agriculture in the town of Canandaigua. And then the second piece of that is our efforts to protect and promote agriculture and the PDRs and those types of things. So those interpretive signs are going up into Miller Park. So that's something that obviously the Agriculture Committee, that idea came from you guys originally. And, it's just taken us a while to get to that point, but that's another piece where we can say, we're working on that. So.
Yeah, at least I didn't know. I don't know if anyone else knew. I was not.
Yeah, I wasn't aware that there was that much there. I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah. So I don't know that the sign has been installed yet. I just saw it come in. It's in Lindsay's office if it's not at Miller Park yet, but it's one of the interpretive signs, just like we have out at Miller Park, where it's got the steel, I think they're steel, platform with the base that's angled at an angle. And then it actually has the information on it. Let me just pull up Miller Park real quick here so I can show you, because you probably don't really know what I'm talking about. So that's
I do. I've walked there quite a bit.
Okay. All right.
Pretty cool.
And if you haven't met Lindsay, this is Lindsay, and please feel free to say hi to her. She is very passionate about our parks. But actually, here's Miller Park right here. And here's one of those signs that I was talking about. These are all throughout the park, these interpretive signs. And there are two signs that are coming for that. One sign specifically is the piece on the protection, the PDRs, and the other is the history of agriculture for the town. So that's those signs. The other thing is, Fernando, to your comment about featuring stuff, I think it's definitely an opportunity. There's another thing that we did this year where we added a game room at Ononda Park that saw a lot of use. Having some sort of brochure or sign or something like that in the game room inside is protected from the elements and the weather. We saw a lot of use of that. We could easily put something like that in that game room if we had something designed. The other thing is Motion Junction, which is our newest playground, our newest park. And that's the inclusive playground. That is getting a phenomenal
the one in
amount
front
of
of
attention.
Outhouse?
So,
Outhouse,
what's that, say
yeah.
again?
Right in front of House Park?
Yes. Mhm.
When is that one opening? That's gonna be a pretty nice one.
It is. It's going to be a huge park. That one, we're hoping that by October, it's at least usable so that people can start playing on the playground. But it'll be 22 before the building or pavilion, whatever it's going to be, is constructed there. So.
It'll be nice to have something in there. I mean, that's gonna get a lot of views based on just how nice it looks.
That playground, I actually had an inquiry from CBS New York City about that. I have actually on October 20th, we're doing a presentation to the Texas League of Municipalities. I've had calls from the Cleveland Clinic about that playground. That playground is going to get phenomenal coverage. So,
Nice.
so
As long as it doesn't bring a lot of people wanting to move into the town just because it's so nice of a park.
well,
I
And we
agree.
can
I
develop
agree.
uptown. We can
That's
develop
right.
uptown.
that's what we have Uptown for. That's absolutely right. So. Bob, I don't know how you want to go about just kind of touching base on a lot of these others, kind of where you want to go in terms of these goals or strategies, or if you want to kind of dedicate a meeting to this or kind of go back and revisit. I know one of the things Sarah was looking for was trying to get some direction on the specific items that you guys wanted to try to focus on for 22. I don't know if you want to attend the strategic planning and do that as part of that, or do a separate meeting, or.
I think in the past, it's been better to go through this in an in-person meeting and dedicate a whole meeting to it.
Mhm.
That would be my opinion.
Okay.
I don't know what anybody else thinks about that.
I agree with that, Bob.
Yep, we've got a lot of boxes checked, that's for sure, but we've got to go ahead and take a look and prioritize it, and that's going to require a lot of discussion for sure.
And maybe even some of the things that we hear at the strategic planning meeting that might help guide us a little bit on what we want to. So what some of this stuff is checked off and done, Doug. What do we add more to it? Change things? What do we have to do that though? Is it really since it's a town plan? Can we just go ahead and do that, or what's the process?
Well, it's probably more giving an update kind of on where we're at than actually changing the plan, that these items have been completed, or we believe these items have been completed. These items are ones that haven't in the priority area that we need to focus on. I know Sarah keeps and I apologize, I just don't have it. I know Sarah has a little spreadsheet that she keeps where she tries to track that and everything. Even going through that, just kind of touching base on where we're at with those different items. She had a parent teacher, after 2 years of not attending or whatever it's been in-person classes, her kids were excited to meet the teachers for the first time and stuff. So it was that's what she had going on tonight. So she just couldn't make it, I believe. Yeah, so maybe dedicating some time, a meeting or whatever, Bob, to go through these and go through that spreadsheet, that might make a lot of sense.
I would propose that our next meeting we spend on this, and maybe everybody review it more ahead of time too, to have some specific thoughts.
I second
Second.
that.
Second that.
Sounds like a plan. Gary, the ordinance committee hasn't reviewed the overlay plan yet, have they?
No,
That'd be end of this month, or
I'm not exactly sure, Bob, due to the fact that we got a big item that we've been working on for 2 or 3 meetings, and that's a ridge line and the view shed. We're trying to get that wrapped up and then move into some other areas, which would include the overlay.
okay. I was just curious.
Gary, we can touch base on this, but does the ordinance committee have everything you need at this point to start the review of that? We can go back and relook at that.
Yeah, I'll have to check on that because we've
Okay.
had it a little bit.
All right.
Anybody have anything else?
Bob, the last one there is just the budget, just to touch base on the 22 budget. So the
All right,
agriculture
yeah.
committee, the agriculture committee does have a budget line in our budget. It falls under conservation. And that's where we've put things before for the agriculture committee. There's a number of things in that category that relate some of them directly and indirectly. Like for instance, the conservation program that I was talking about, there's some money in that to get a program launched and some training and that sort of thing. But there were two specific items that we had previously discussed right before, I think it was actually originally in the 2020 budget that got pushed on pause with the whole COVID situation. We originally were talking about creating like the monument marker signs for the farms that are protected. And so we put a placeholder in the budget to go back and revisit that, and then doing some public education type of events, possibly with parks or recreation or other, but to put some money back in that you had requested for that. But I know we had talked, Genesis, and this goes back a few years now, because I think it really was the 2020 budget that had that in it originally. We had gotten some concepts from, I think it was the Genesee Valley the Genesee Finger Lakes Land Trust had shown us some examples of what they had done. So we can dig those out and recirculate those. But if the Ag Committee wanted to look at that, we put a placeholder back in the budget for that, because it was one of those items that got taken out with the COVID adjustment in 2020.
That's when we talk about making those signs for the different parks. And I think the ones you're talking about is the nice big signs of this land is protected under a PDR.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes. Mhm.
Yes.
All right, Bob, that's all on the agenda, I think.
Okay. Anybody else have any comment on any of the budget stuff? I know last meeting we did discuss some of that too.
Could I request a quick summarization of what I missed? And on the, I think it was about code. Is that correct? If not, that's okay.
the best way to summarize it is we talked about we have 5 or assigned 5, and we're talking about taking away the number so that Linda can officially join, and it's up to the president of the board to decide if we need 5 or 6 members. We still need majority, but by not having the number, we are able to have extra when we have them available and operate with less when we don't have enough volunteers.
Okay, thank you. I didn't miss much. I appreciate it.
No. Well, if there's nothing more, I move that we adjourn.
Now, the next meeting is going to be the second Thursday, right, Bob?
Yes, we'll plan to start that.
Which will be April or October 14th.
Yeah, don't jump all the way to April yet.
Yeah. Get you out there with the spring planting, huh?
I did
Well,
just
if we
see a
can
big
get-
chopper go by and a couple big wagons, so it must be someone starting tomorrow or this weekend.
Yeah, we'll start that, and
I
I'll
won't be able-
contact you. You won't be available.
No, dairy challenge is that weekend, so I'm gonna be busy from Thursday to Saturday on that.
Okay.
I may try to join online if it's a dual, but you know how dairy
Yeah.
challenge goes. It's usually go in the evenings.
Yeah, we'll plan from now on to be hybrid, so that there's choice. All right. That's all I have. Doug, anything else?
No, I don't have anything. If you have any questions for me, I'll do my best to answer them.
All right. Thank
Thanks
you, everyone.
everybody for being so accommodating. I appreciate it.
See you
All right,
next month.
Have a
then.
good night.
Well,
Yeah, take care.
good night,
everybody.
everyone.